Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah, and today I'm so excited to be talking about the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist. This is a bit of a belated video. I did kind of want to make one on the Tuesday when the list was announced, but I didn't really have a lot of time, and I mean, congrats to everyone who already put their videos out. I feel like so late to the race as usual, but for maybe my viewers who don't know much about this prize, this will be the first time hearing about it, and for those people who are obsessed with just watching reaction videos, maybe this video will serve that purpose too. I know I've watched a few over the last couple days. I'm so excited. As always, this is my 4th year following this prize, and I think this is the year where I know the least amount of books or authors. I think in the first year there were a few names like Britt Bennett and Susanna Clark that kind of stuck out to me. Even though I hadn't read the books, I was like, I know who these people are, or I've heard of their books. But as the years have gone by, last year too, there were less names that I recognized, certainly very few books that I recognized, and this year there's just one book that I've seen in a bookstore before and have picked up and thought about reading, and everything else seems so unfamiliar to me, which is very exciting. I love discovering new authors, whether they're big names or not, and I've always found a lot of great books through the Women's Prize for Fiction. Although just one year I would love to have maybe already read one of the nominated books, because there are 16 and I do try to get through all or as many of them as I can before the winner gets announced, and I'll even read past the announcement of the winner if there's some books that I'm still interested in. So it would be nice to maybe take a couple of those books off my plate sometimes, because March, April, May become very busy reading months, because I'm so excited. So in this video, I just want to quickly go over the winners. Again, if you are familiar with the prize, I'm sure you've done your own research on them, but for those who maybe have not, and even those who have, maybe you'd like to hear a different perspective on them. And I've kind of taken some time yesterday in particular going through all 16 books to see what they're really about. These are going to be very short descriptions, however. If anything does somewhat catch your interest, I definitely encourage you to look more into it on Goodreads or on another website to learn more about the book, because I'm not going to be giving that much away, and I don't know that much about most of these beyond their brief descriptions, so I've kind of just been taken from that and what a few other people on YouTube have said about them. I'm also going to talk about some of the books that I'm particularly excited to read. There are a few that stood out on this list for me, although honestly a lot of them sound really good and books that I would have been willing to pick up anyway, and maybe try to discuss a bit of a reading plan, but we'll see. And without further ado, here are the 16 longlisted books for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2024. The first book is Enter Ghost by Isabella Hamad. After spending years away from home and still distressed after a love affair gone wrong, an actress returns to Haifa to visit her sister. While there, she finds herself roped into performing in a production of Hamlet in the West Bank with a group of very dedicated actors from all across historic Palestine. Brotherless Night by Vivi Ganeshananthan. Sashi is 16 years old and really wants to be a doctor, but is soon swept up in a civil war in Sri Lanka over the next decade that, I don't want to say takes the lives of her brothers, because I don't know that, but certainly involves all her brothers and one of their closest friends. As the violence grows and grows, she is invited by one of her friends to work as a medic for the Tamil Tigers. However, when one of her favorite teachers gets murdered by the Tigers and Indian peacekeepers come in but don't end up actually keeping the peace and just making the situation even more violent, she starts to really question what her role is and what side she might be on in this conflict. She is then invited to work on a secret and possibly dangerous project with another professor, which changes the course of her life forever. Hangman by Maya Binyam. A man returns to sub-Saharan Africa after 26 years spent in America, and he recognizes nothing and no one. A strange man does recognize him, though, and calls him brother, which leads him to search for his real brother. I'm curious about who the stranger is, honestly. But this leads him to the search for his own brother, who is dying. In Defense of the Act by Effie Black. Jessica Miller is fascinated by the act of humans ending their own lives, and doesn't necessarily believe that this act is in any way morally or ethically wrong. That is, until something changes in her own life. As Jessica is struggling with her sexuality and relationships and figuring that out, a single event in her life changes everything that she ever thought she knew. And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. On the surface, everything seems perfect for Alice. She just gave birth to a baby girl, her husband Steve is very supportive and kind, and they both just moved into a fancy new neighborhood in Toronto. But not everything is truly perfect. Alicia feels like an imposter. Not only can she not connect with her own daughter, She feels unwelcome in this new neighborhood of which she is the only Indigenous resident. She then begins to lose bits of time and starts hearing voices, and the initially passive-aggressive behavior of her new neighbors starts to feel more and more sinister and like it's taking a darker turn. Her husband reassures her everything is okay, but she is compelled to find out what is going on for the betterment of her life and that of her daughters. The Wren by Anne Enright. Nell never knew her grandfather, who is a famous Irish poet, but his poems, particularly his love poems, seem to speak particularly to her. She leaves her mother's home at 22 to try to find her own voice as a writer. Her mother, Carmel, also understands the beauty of her father's poems. However, she really struggles to reconcile these beautiful poems with the man who abandoned her family and who really shattered the life of her and her mother. While seeing her daughter be fascinated with these poems, she herself has to really struggle to reconcile who the man behind this beautiful poetry and the broken past that he left her is. The Maiden by Kate Foster. It's 1679 and a woman is charged with the murder of her lover after just last year she was living a life of respectability and privilege. She's not the only woman in this man's life, and certainly not the only one who might want him dead for his transgressions. However, she is the one who is ultimately charged and arrested with this. This is a retelling based on a true story of a woman who has been long silenced by history, her story largely untold. Restless Dolly Maunder by Kate Grenville. Kate Grenville uses family memories to retell the story of her grandmother, a woman who was pushing back against society's limits and structures for women at a time where certain doors were only just barely opening up for certain women. The stories of these women who were fighting for change are often lost to history, despite the role they played in helping foster and create change for women in the future. Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. This novel explores the early days of motherhood, where a woman's love for her child kind of clashes with her newfound identity as a mother after not having known that at all. The main character, Sailor, struggles with marriage, love, and the will to survive, even as she experiences what it means to be a mother and care for her baby. When an old friend makes a welcome return in her life, will that be enough to change things for her and kind of propel her to move forward and make her feel like herself again? 8 Lives of a Century-Old Trickster by Marine Lee. This book is set in the demilitarized zone of South and North Korea, and in this shadowy sort of netherworld lives a woman only known as Trickster. This book follows Trickster and her family as they try to survive some of these very turbulent times in modern Korean history. The Trickster is the shapeshifter and takes on many roles, such as that of a slave, an escape artist, a murderer, a lover, a spy, a mother, and she's often doing very unthinkable things in order to survive and help her family survive. The Blue Beautiful World by Karen Lord. The world is changing as sea levels are rising and increasing forest fires are just becoming the new norm for us. Meanwhile, Earth is being watched by other distant and remote civilizations who are finally ready to make contact. A group of passionate change makers and peacekeepers are those who will be trying to make contact with these new beings and civilizations. And will that contact be enough to help Earth and create a positive change moving forward? Western Lane by Chetna Maru. 11-year-old Gopi has been playing squash since she can remember. But after her mother dies, her father gives her a much more strict and difficult sort of squash regimen and really just starts to take her training seriously. Squash becomes her world and she grows apart from her sisters, but grows closer to her father and others on the court, really being involved and loving the game. This novel explores sisterhood, the relationship to family, and to oneself. Night Bloom by Peace Adri Mehdi. Selassie and Akorfa are 2 cousins growing up in Ghana, and they are inseparable. They are extremely close. They are best friends, despite some of their differences in personality. As they grow older, they sort of grow apart as well. They sort of change, and Selassie sort of becomes a little bit more quiet and reserved, and doesn't spend as much time with Akorfa, who soon gets accepted into an American university to study to be a doctor. As she leaves Ghana, she becomes much more aware of the racism that stands in her path as she is trying to complete medical school. A crisis later brings them back together, and they are both forced to reconcile with secrets in their life and what really drew them apart initially. Ordinary Human Failings by Meg Nolan. An ambitious but somewhat cold-hearted reporter stumbles upon a story that may change everything for him. There is a dead child in London of a beloved family in the neighborhood, and the main suspect seemed to be a reclusive Irish family. Hoping to get an inside story, the reporter involves himself in the lives of this family, really bringing them to the forefront of this case as the police are honing in on a suspect and trying to solve this murder. This sounds like a bit of a mystery, and I believe we get the side of perhaps the family as well. River East, River West by Aubrey Lescour. This story takes place in 2 different time periods. The first following Alva in 2007 in Shanghai, as she kind of has to reconcile, doesn't really approve of her mother's new relationship, her mother's soon-to-be new marriage with a man that she does not seem to care for. Meanwhile, in 1985, we see the perspective of this man as a much younger person growing up in China, with very hopeful for the future, and his hopes are kind of being crushed. But when China opens up the doors for immigrants and newcomers, him meeting an American woman changes everything for him. So we'll kind of get the perspective of this younger woman and the man that she really does not care for. A Trace of Sun by Pam Williams. This novel is partially inspired by the experiences of the author and tells the story of a young boy, Rafe, who is left behind in Granada as his mother leaves to England with her new husband or partner in search for a better life. When they're reunited 7 years later, they are practically strangers to each other, and these decisions that have been made in the past now threaten to kind of explode and tear the family apart forever. Okay, that is all 16 books. I felt a little mechanical reading some of these because I'm not super familiar with them. Usually when I talk about books here, they're books that I've read or know a little bit more about. These, I just kind of read the description. I've not read any of them yet. I was also kind of trying to channel like the announcers of the prize. They seem very like collected usually when they are talking about the books that they are presenting in the long list. So honestly, I'm excited for pretty much all these books. None of them sound like boring to me. There's probably some that I would just, even if I'd heard of them, maybe I would just not pick them up necessarily, but a lot of these sound like books that if I saw anywhere else, I would read anyway. So I'm really excited about that. I think books like Enter Ghost, I'm just gonna go through my list like this because I don't wanna leave one out. Enter Ghost, Brotherless Night, In Defense of the Act, and then She Fell. Oh my God, I'm just like reading almost all these books. The Wren. What else? Night Bloom and Ordinary Human Failings are probably some of the ones that I'm like most excited for, but all the other ones sound really good too. It's very much just gonna be like which book arrives for me at the library first is kind of how I'm gonna read most of these, I think. I always buy a couple of the books that seem the most interesting or that I have like a hard time like finding at the library. I've asked the library to buy some of these books in the past, and I think they usually do, but this can take a while, and I try to read as many of them as quickly as I can. Yeah, so we'll see. I just started Western Lane by Chetna Maru. I'm not very far into it. It was the first book that came to me in the library. I got it on the like Libby app on my phone, so I'm really happy about that. I got kind of like a, I don't know, you can like skip the line on a loan. I'm not totally sure how that works, but I'm very excited that it does because I got it like the day I placed the hold. Like I said, I'm excited to discover new authors. I have not heard of most of these, and it seems like a pretty big range of topics and books. My partner watched like the long list announcement with me, and he sort of feels like there's a lot of historical fiction books, and I think there are about like 3 or 4 that would technically fit the category. Which not his favorite genre, but I do enjoy it typically. So other than that, it seems like just general like literary fiction. I don't know that there's too much of a theme otherwise. I think they did try to pull from a lot of different topics. I guess there's a couple of mysteries, I think, and then She Fell, and the Meg Nolan book that I'm also excited for seemed like a little bit of a mystery. Which I'm always into. But yeah, I think I will end the video around here. Are you following the Women's Prize for Fiction? Is this your first year of doing it or following it? Is this maybe your first time? Always exciting to follow it for the first time, honestly. Are there any books that you are particularly excited for, whether you're following the prize or not? Did any of these sound good? Are you planning on reading any of these? Is there like, do you have a plan maybe on how to get through some of these? I'm so jealous of the people that just like, get sent the entire long list, because that just makes it so easy. Then you just read the books that you're the most excited for and you get through them really quickly, and I just kind of have to like wait until whatever comes in for me. Yeah, leave any thoughts in the comments. I would really love to hear from anyone else following this prize, anyone who just might be interested in some of these books. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, share this video. It would mean so much as always. And I hope to catch you in the next one.